Hello dear friends, I welcome all of you to learn passive voice on behalf of Commissionerate of Technical Education. I am Professor Almaz Zuneja from CU Shah Polytechnic, Surendranagar, and the author of your textbook Active English. You can see it on your screen. Now friends, let's start learning passive voice. In my last lecture, we had started learning tenses, and I hope that you are through with it. Now let's see passive voices. And the knowledge of tenses is very important while making passive voice from active voice. Let's see what is passive voice first. These are some sentences written in passive voice. I was shocked too. No dogs allowed on beach. English teacher, your grammar may be corrected at any time. Socks must be worn while in Ronald's play place. No movie should be reduced to this. English spoken here. All these are sentences written in passive voice. You are being washed, right? Now, one more example. I'm giving her a present. That's a sentence in active voice. But the girl who is receiving, she's saying that I'm being given a present. That is in a passive voice. When do we use and what is the use of passive voices in day-to-day languages? So we use a lot of sentences in our day-to-day life to converse. Most of the sentences which we say are in active voice as they are shorter. So let us understand the meaning of active voice and passive voice and then go ahead with the examples while we discuss the rules for the same. In grammar, voice refers to the form of a verb that shows whether the subject of a sentence performs the action or is affected by it. Let's learn it further. And when do we use it? Why should we use passive voice? What is the need to use passive voice? Right, let's see. So when the subject is unknown, when we don't know who has performed the action, that time we use passive voice. Flats are sold. We don't know who sold the flat, but flats are sold. Ankita was given a gift. We don't know who gave the gift to Ankita, right? But Ankita was given a gift. So in both the sentences, the subject is unknown. That time we use passive voice. The second use of passive voice is when the subject is not important. Right, when the action or the object is that much important while we don't pay attention or we don't pay any importance to the subject. That time also we use passive voice. The house can be visited between 8 and 12. Right, who can visit the house when nothing? Right, the house can be visited between 8 and 12. So that time also we use passive voice. When we want to give importance to the object of the active voice, right, as I told you that when the subject is unknown or the subject is not important, but maybe subject is known, but the subject is not important and object is that much important, that we need to use passive voice. See the example. America was discovered in 1942 by Columbus. Right, so the event of the discovery of America is magnanimous, right? That is so much important that the subject, when everything becomes unimportant. So America was discovered. If you want to say that time we use passive voice. The passive is used more in writing and formal speech. This is one of the very important factor while making the use of passive voice. The passive is used more in writing and formal speech such as public information, for example rules, signs, brochures, report, etc. Cycling is not permitted in this area, right? So that is a kind of command, or that is a kind of information. So that's why here passive voice is used. Bookings can be made online. So that is again a kind of information. That time also we use passive voice. Now let's see the definitions of active voice and passive voice. A verb is in the active voice when its form shows that the person or thing denoted by the subject does something, or in other words, is the doer of the action, right? So when we want to say that the subject does something, that time we use active voice. The active voice is so called because the person denoted by the subject acts, right? See the example. Jamin invited friends, right? So Jamin does something here, right? Who invites friends? Jamin. So when we want to say that the subject does something, that time we use active voice. And we can say that the verb is in the active voice. Now let's see the passive voice. A verb is in the passive voice when its form shows that something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject, right? So in active voice, the subject used to do something, but here something is done to the subject, or something is done to the person or thing denoted by the subject. So that time we use passive voice. The passive voice is so called because the person or thing denoted by the subject is not active but passive. That is, suffers or receives some action, right? So here the subject is being acted upon. That's what we can say in passive voice. Or in the other word you can say that subject is not active but passive, or the subject suffers or receives some kind of action. So passive voice is subject is being acted upon. Friends were invited by Jamin, right? In active voice what we said? Jamin invited friends. But here we say that in passive voice, friends were invited by Jamin. So Jamin is being acted upon, right? Jamin has become passive. The subject has become passive, and the subject receives the action. Subject receives the action of inviting the friends, right? So here we say that friends were invited by Jamin. So this is the difference. There are some general rules which we need to pay attention to while using passive voices. Normally only those verbs can be passivized which have an object. Such verbs are called transitive verbs, that is, verbs with object. Thus, a typical active voice sentence should have the following parts in order to change into passive voice. Subject plus verb plus object. Now subject is doer here, right? And verb and object. These three things are required for changing the sentence from active voice to passive voice. Now let's see how do we do it. It is noticed that when the verb is changed from the active voice to the passive voice, the object of the transitive verb in the active voice becomes the subject of the verb in the passive voice, right? So in the active voice, the subject becomes object in passive voice, Let's see it more clearly with the example. In active voice, doer, that means subject, active verb plus receiver. Receiver is the object. That is the sentence of a active voice. Now let's see what do we do in passive voice. In passive voice, the receiver comes first. That means the object becomes subject here. The object of active voice becomes the subject of passive voice. Clear, friends? Now the active verb is translated or is changed to passive verb. But friends, do remember here that we don't change tense here, right? And there are certain equations or rules which we are going to learn shortly. So passive structure would be like receiver plus passive verb plus doer. So you can see clearly that the subject becomes object in the passive voice and object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. And the verb of active is passivized or is changed to passive verb. Right? Let's see it further. Now, let's see. Here, the active voice sentence is, the cook washes the dishes. Right? The cook is the subject or doer. It's the same thing. The verb here is washes. And the object here or the receiver here is the dishes. Now, let's see how do we change it into passive voice. So, the first rule is object becomes the subject. Object of the active verbs becomes the subject of the passive verb. So, let's see how do we change it. So, the dishes, active verb will be in passive verb, are washed by the receiver. The dishes are washed by the cook. Let's see one more example. We won the first prize. We is the subject, active verb is won, and object is the first prize. Right? Now let's see how do we change it into passive voice. So the object will become subject here. Right? So the first prize will be first. The first prize. The subject of active verb is becoming passive verb. So was won and the subject of active verb become the object of passive verb. So the first prize was won by us. Let's see it further. Some points which you must remember is, you may have to use an appropriate preposition like by before the passive object whenever it is mentioned. So I becomes by me, we is changed to by us, you is changed to by you, he becomes by him, she becomes by her, it becomes by it, and they become by them, and Rahul is changed to by Rahul only. Right? So these are some points you should know and remember. There are some more points. Let's see. When we change a sentence from active voice to passive voice, the tense of the verb remains the same. Friends, I told you earlier also that we changed the verb from active verb to passive verb, but the tense of the verb remains the same. Let's see. The verb has to agree with the subject of the sentence. That is also one very important aspect of passive voice which you must remember. The verb has to agree with the subject of the sentence. Let's see how. He cooks food, right? This is a sentence of active voice. He cooks the food. Now what is the verb here? Food, right? Food is the verb. Now food is singular, right? Food is a singular noun. Food is cooked by him, that is passive voice. So what did we do here? We used is with food because food is already a singular verb. Right, friends? Food is the subject of the passive sentence, that is singular, and in the passive voice, that's why we make is cooked, because the verb is in singular form. So when the subject of a sentence is singular, the verb must also be in singular. We are going to learn all the equations where you will learn the how to change from active voice to passive voice. So you are going to learn all the formulas. So don't worry, friends, you are going to learn all that, but just learn some basic rules and then we'll actually start the formulas. The second example is when the subject of a sentence is plural, the verb of that sentence must also be plural. Let's see. He carried some books. This is a sentence of active voice. Now here, friends, some books is the object of the verb in active. And you can all know, you can all see that some books is in plural, right? So some books were carried by him. That's how we change from active voice to passive voice. We have used the verb were carried, right? Because the books, some books is a plural word, and that's why we use plural verb. Were carried, again I tell you, is the verb. Were is plural and books is also plural. So the subject has to agree with the verb, or verb has to agree with the subject. There's one more example. She has signed 10 letters, right? That is a sentence of active voice. She is the subject, has is the part of the verb, and that is singular, right? Here. But we are going to change the subject as an object and object as in subject. So here the 10 letters will become the subject in passive voice. And friends, 10 letters is in plural, right? So the passive voice will be like 10 letters have been signed by her, right? In the active voice, she was singular and that's why we had used has. But the object becomes subject, that is 10 letters, and 10 letters is plural, and that's why we will use have instead of has, right? So 10 letters is the subject, that is plural, and that's why we have changed it into have been signed. Clear, friends? So the subject or the verb has to agree with the subject. Fine. Now let's understand what is the difference between active voice and passive voice. So you should know that when you should use active voice and when you should use passive voice in spoken language. So difference is in the meaning, right? In passive voice, the subject of the sentence receives the action, right? For example, the food is cooked by me. So here the food is, I am receiving some action. The food is cooked by me. While in active voice, the subject of the sentence performs the action, right? For example, I cooked the food, right? In active voice, we say I cooked the food. That means the subject performs some action or subject does something. While in passive voice, subject receives some action. So the food is cooked by me. So I am the subject and I receive that food is cooked by me, right? In passive voice, verbs such as be, is, am, was, were, are, being, had been, right? Followed with by. Okay. Passive voice is indirect. That is an indirect way of expressing something, right? They are often taken to interesting places by their friends. So indirectly we are saying something here. While in active voice we say everything directly, right? Their friends often take them to interesting places. Clear, friends? Now passive voice is less concise, right? It's little bit lengthy. Topics for the next lecture are being discussed by the teacher. So it is somewhat lengthy, that means less concise. While active voice is more concise, right? That is, we say it directly. The teachers are discussing the topics for the next lecture. Now, let's see what should we do to change the sentences from active to passive. Let's see what should we do. So first of all, friends, what you need to do is, whatever sentence is given to you, find out the subject and object in the sentence. Clear? And then find out the subject and object and do flip-flop. So subject becomes object and object becomes subject. So that is called flip-flop. And then change the verb accordingly. So if the sentence is in active verb, make the verb passive, right? We'll learn how verb is changed into passive. But first of all, what you should know is that the subject and object, right? So you can flip-flop both. So let's begin with simple present tense. Let's see how you will change the active verb to the passive verb. Friends, by this time, you all know that the subject will become object and object will become subject, and you have found out these two things in a sentence, and now it is time for you to select the verb and make the active verb into passive verb. Clear? Now let's see how do we do it. But friends, here once again I remind you one thing, that you should have the basic knowledge of tenses. Then only you will be able to know the sentence is in which tense, right? Once you can identify the tense from the given verb, then only you will be able to use this formula, right? So friends, again go back to tenses, revise it, and then come back here to learn passive voice. Now let's begin. How do we use this formula? The active is subject, verb and object. Now in passive, let's see how do we change it. So object becomes subject and subject becomes object. Clear? Then for verb, what do we do? So the verb is in present form, simple present tense form, right? So simple verb is given, and for third person singular, s or es must be there. Now you have to make the object the subject and use is, am, are, whatever is applicable. Friends, we just learned that you need to make sure that the verb agrees with the subject, right? So here you will use is, am, are, whatever is applicable to the subject, and you will use the past participle form of the given verb, right? And before you write the object, that was your subject in the active tense, active sentences, you will use by before that, right? Let's see an example. Rahul plays cricket every day. Here the subject is Rahul, the object is cricket, and plays is the verb of simple present tense. Now cricket will become the subject, right? And we will have to use is, am, are, whichever is applicable to the object or the subject of passive sentence, that is cricket. So cricket is applicable. Cricket is, and the verb plays of active sentence, active verb becomes the passive by changing it into past participle form. So plays become played, right? So cricket is played and Rahul is the object of the passive verb. Before that we will use by. So, and every day will remain the same. Cricket is played by Rahul every day. Let's see some more examples. Right? This is the clear formula written for you. Right? Is MR plus past participle. That's how we change the sentence from active voice to passive voice. The boys are punished by the teacher. The cat is fed by Meera. Right? These are two sentences of passive voice. Let's see one more example which will make things very clear. Someone locks the office every evening. Right? This is a sentence of active. Right? Active voice. Someone locks the office every evening. Someone is the subject and the office is the object. Friends, remember now that subject becomes object and object becomes subject. That is, the office becomes the subject here, and locks is the verb of simple present tense. So we will use is MR plus past participle to make the verb passive. So here you can say that the office is locked every evening. Right? The office is locked every evening. Now here the subject someone is not important. Right? You can skip that also. Friends, remember that why should we use passive voice? When the subject is not important. Right? So that time we don't write subject in the passive voice. The office is locked every evening. That is a more important task, right? Who locks the office is not important. And that's why we have used the passive voice here. Let's see some more examples. She bakes cakes, right? Bakes is the verb. She is the subject, cakes is the object. So flip-flop the subject and object. Right? Let's see. Cakes are baked by her. Cakes is here in plural. Right? So cakes are baked by her is MR plus past participle. That has become the passive voice. Right? Are baked is the verb of passive voice. Now friends, I hope that you have learned the formula of changing a sentence from active voice to passive voice. Let's see what you have learned. Here is an exercise for you. The fire blank out by the fireman. Right? And these are three choices. Right? The fire dash fire blank out by the fireman. Make the verb passive, that is for simple present tense. So what will be here? Puts is put or put. Right? So remember the formula is MR plus past participle. Put is the past participle form of put. Right? And the fire is a singular thing. So we will use is put. Right? The fire is put out by the fireman. The sandwich blank by girls. Right? So sandwiches, if it is sandwiches, then it will become are. But here the sandwich is in singular form. So is MR, whatever is applicable. So is applicable here. And the past participle form, that is made. So the answer will be Yes, you are right. The sandwich is made by the girls. One more example. A present blank to me. Right. So, friends, is MR plus past participle. So, is given to me. Fine. Good. Let's see. Here also you have to make the verbs in passive and for simple present tense. So, there is a dog which blank puppy. You have to use the verb call. It blank by Mr. Saxena. You have to use the verb own here. It blank in his home. Here the verb is keep. It blank every day by Mr. Saxena himself. Here you have to use the simple present tense and the verb is given feed. Let's see one by one. First is there is a dog which is called puppy, right? Now let's see what is the answer for second sentence. It dash by Mr. Saxena. So again is MR plus past participle. What is the past participle of own? Let's see. Is owned. It is owned by Mr. Saxena. It dash in his home is MR plus past participle. Keeps past participle is kept. So it is kept in his home. The next is it dash. So is MR, right? Is MR, like now, by now you have understood that is will come because the subject is it, right? Feed is fed. Past participle of feed is fed. So it is fed every day by Mr. Saxena himself. Now let's see the sentence number 5th and 6th. It dash in funny clothes and the verb given here is dress. So let's see the answer. Is MR again is and dress is becoming dressed. So it is dressed in funny clothes. Yes, friends. It does that puppy is Mr. Saxena's only friend. So is and the past participle of say is said. So it is said that puppy is Mr. Saxena's only friend. Okay, friends. One more. The policeman catch the thief, right? So the subject is the policeman, the object is the thief, and the verb is catch, which is in simple present tense. So the thief becomes the subject in passive voice and the policeman will become the object of the passive voice. And we will use the formula is MR plus past participle. So let's see. The thief is caught by the policeman. Clear, friends? The second example is the girl puts on a beautiful dress. Let's see the answer. A beautiful dress is put on by the girl. Friends, I hope that you are solving these problems with me and you are learning also. Now let's see the formula for present continuous tense. Subject, the form of active voice is subject plus is MR plus verb with ing and object. Now let's see the formula. How do we change it into passive voice? So here the object comes to subject, right? Is MR will remain same and we use being. We add the verb being here, right? And then we change the verb into past participle. So the verb with ing form in active voice or active sentence will become past participle or will be changed into past participle in passive voice. And here we will add one more word, that is being, right? So the subject plus is MR, whatever is applicable, and we will add the verb being here, and we will change the verb of ing form of active voice into past participle form of that verb. We will again add by before the object here. Let's see the example. Rahul is playing cricket outside at the moment. Right? So friends, first of all, here again I am telling you that you should be able to identify the tense of the active voice. Right? So here is playing denotes that the verb is in present continuous tense. Right? The sentence is of present continuous tense. So we will apply the formula of passive voice. So cricket is the subject, right? In the passive voice, is MR. So cricket agrees with is, right? So cricket is, and as per the formula we will add the word being, right? Let's see. So here we say cricket is being, and playing becomes played. We don't write playing here because ing form we have already added in the form of being as a word, right? So cricket is being, playing becomes played by Rahul outside at the moment, right? So friends, let's clear the formula once again. Is MR plus being plus past participle form of the verb, right? The homework is being done by Shyam now, right? The homework is being done by Shyam now. The floor is being cleaned by the servant. Let's see. Active voice is someone is locking the office at the moment. And in passive voice, we write the office is being locked now or at this moment, whatever you can write, right? So the object of the active verbs become the subject, and the verb is locking is changed as per the formula, that is MR plus being plus past participle form of the verb. So is being locked. So the passive voice, the sentence in the passive voice will be the office is being locked now. Let's see some more examples. He is building a sand castle. A sentence is of active voice and for present continuous tense is the tense. Let's see and find out the verb. The verb is building, right? And that verb tells us that the sentence is of present continuous tense. Clear? Now, once you come to know the verb of the or the tense of the sentence, then you just have to apply the formula given to you. Is MR plus being plus past participle of the verb. Subject becomes the object, object becomes the subject. So here the subject is he, that will become object. Friends, remember what did we do? He becomes by him, right? Okay, and a sand castle is the object of the active voice, that will become the subject here. Let's see. A sand castle is being built by him, right? So we applied the formula and we have made the tense sentence from active to passive. A sand castle is being built by him. Is being built is the verb of passive voice and of present continuous tense. Friends, do remember that when you change the sentence from active voice to passive voice, the tense of the sentence should not be changed, right? The active verb should be changed into passive verb, but the tense will remain the same. Let's see the exercise. Here, the same exercise, but the sentence is of present continuous tense. So, the fire blank out by the fireman at the moment. Now friends, you tell me what will be the answer here. Right? Let's think of the formula first. Is MR plus being plus past participle. Right? So according to the formula, what will be the answer? Tell me. Okay. The answer will be is being put. Okay friends? Right. The sandwich dash by girls. Fine. So is MR plus being plus past participle. According to the formula, what will be the answer? Yes, you're right. Is being made by girls. A present blank to me just now. Is MR plus being plus past participle. So that means the answer C is the correct answer. Yes, a present is being given to me just now. Okay friends, so till now we have understood what is the active voice and passive voice. When should we use active voice? What is the use of passive voice, and when should we use it? What points you should remember? What parts of the speech should be present to like change from active voice to passive voice, that is subject, verb and object. Subject and objects are flip-flop, right? So subject becomes object, object becomes subject. But here you need to take care that the verb of passive voice and active voice should remain of same tense, right? So the tense should not be changed. That's what you need to remember. Here we learn two tenses, right? That is simple present tense and present continuous tense. In our next lecture, we will understand and learn the formula for all the other tenses. Thank you friends. Thank you so much for your patient hearing.